Hi, I'm Becca, and today I'm going to show you how you would use the Pavlovia shelf to keep track of the number of sessions a participant has completed in your online experiment. So this is a scenario where you might want a participant to sign into your experiment using an ID, and you might want them to be able to do this several times, and you want to keep track of how many sessions they have completed. So in order to get started, you're going to need your experiment in PsychoPy, as I have here. And then you're going to want to click Insert Routine and select New. From here, we're going to use a routine template from the online section, and we're going to select multi-session. And here I'm going to call this track session. And I'll put that at the beginning of my experiment flow. Now, inside this routine, you'll see there's already two components available. One is a text component that's going to say, welcome participant, your participant ID inserted there. This is session number, and then a session number inserted there linked to this participant ID. So if you've already completed a session, it's going to tell you what session number you are on. You can then, what's important from here is you're wondering, how does it get this variable session number? So that's where you can have a look inside your code component that is already created. And if you're not familiar with JavaScript, this might look quite complex. In future, we hope to make this a little bit easier, but for now, do not worry. There is a link at the bottom of here that we'll also put in the description for this video that you can have a look at if you're curious. What I'm going to highlight here is the very first line of code is going to be where we fetch a list of existing participant IDs for participants that have already completed at least one session of this experiment. Now, what that line of code is doing is it's going to wait until we've said, okay, psychojs.shelf.getDictionary fields. And what it's doing is it's looking for a value on your shelf called session_tracker. Now, if this is your first time hearing the word shelf or record or any of these terms that I've used here, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through that now, but I do recommend having a look at our previous videos on automatically counterbalancing online, because those might be relevant as well. Now here, what we're going to do, we're going to need to set up our record session tracker on pavlovia.org. So you can do that by going to pavlovia.org, going to your dashboard, and then selecting shelf. In this window, you can then select add new record, and you're going to want to set up your record. I've already set mine up, so I'll just walk you through the fields that I have here. And here we've called our record session tracker. We've said the scope of this record is going to be experiment, and we've selected the name of the experiment that we're doing the multi-session testing for. We've said this is going to be a dictionary type, and we're going to leave this as its default, which is an empty dictionary. Once you've got that, do make sure to, in your experiment, we're going to save our changes. So we've inserted that there. We're going to want to sync it to Pavlovia, but we will do that in a moment. The first thing to note is that it can take a few moments for your experiment to interact with the shelf. This part is independent on things like internet connectivity, for example. So at the moment, we're only waiting 3 seconds in order to get that value. So just in case, let's make it so that this text remains on the screen, and then your participant can press a key in order to start the experiment. So those are the only changes that we're making to this routine template. Once you've done that, save your experiment and sync changes to pavlovia.org. So I'm going to say add session tracker. And once you've selected that, hopefully your changes then sync to Pavlovia. You will see a success/done message at the bottom here. And then we can go back to our Pavlovia project. So we want to move away from our shelf instead to where our experiment lives. And we're going to run our experiment from here. So now if I were to launch my experiment, and let's say I use the participant ID Becca, here it's going to fetch any existing values that are in that dictionary. And here I can see, welcome participant Becca. This is session number 1 linked to this participant ID, and I can press space in order to move on. Then I see my task, which for me is just the word hello world presented several times. Now let's imagine that I want to run this again. I could then this time say Becca using the same participant ID, click OK, And this time I should be told, welcome participant Becca, this is session 2 linked to this participant ID. And indeed, this is what we see here. Now, what's kind of cool is under the hood, if you go back to your shelf and recall that when we first made this shelf, it was an empty dictionary. And now, if we were to refresh this window, you can now see that there is the participant Becca and there is 2 there. So I know one participant's taking part, Becca, she's completed 2 sessions. Let's say now if I was to, again, this time, I'll just use the default participant ID. This is session 1 for this particular participant, so I should be told this is session 1, lovely stuff. And this time if I go back to my shelf and I update that shelf again, I should now see that there is an additional participant ID. This person's completed 1 session. So hopefully you found this useful. If you have any more comments or questions about the shelf, multi-session testing, online experiments, or you want videos on other content, please do comment and let us know. But otherwise, thank you for watching and I hope you found this useful.